Ethan Miller, a humble shepherd boy, lived in a remote and overlooked village tucked away in the rugged Appalachian Mountains. Life had been unkind to him from an early age. Losing both his parents as a child, Ethan had grown up knowing only hardship and solitude. His home was a crumbling wooden cabin on the outskirts of the village, and his days were spent tending to a small flock of sheep, his only inheritance from a life that seemed to offer little else. The villagers, preoccupied with their own struggles, rarely gave him more than a passing glance, treating him as an invisible thread in the fabric of their harsh, isolated lives. Though his circumstances were bleak, Ethan possessed a quiet determination that set him apart. Beneath his worn, hand-stitched clothes and perpetually dirt-smudged face was a young man with an unyielding spirit. Each day, as he guided his sheep through the rocky fields and sparse meadows, he would dream of a world beyond the mountains, one where he could escape the shadows of poverty and abandonment. The nights, though cold and lonely, were his moments of hope. Under the canopy of countless stars, he would recall his late mother's stories of courage and perseverance, clinging to her words as if they were a lifeline. Yet, even in his dreams, the weight of his reality was never far away, and the question lingered. Could someone as small and insignificant as him ever change the course of his own life? Despite his poverty, Ethan often found solace in the vast expanse of the night sky. The stars, scattered like fragments of hope across the darkness, seemed to whisper promises of a world far beyond the confines of his small village. Lying on the cool grass after a long day of shepherding, he would imagine places filled with opportunity, where people valued more than just wealth or status. His dreams were vivid and bold, painting pictures of bustling cities, lush green landscapes, and endless possibilities. Though his reality was harsh and unrelenting, these dreams were a reminder that the life he led now didn't have to define him forever. Ethan wasn't just content with dreaming. He yearned to prove to himself and to the world that circumstances didn't have to dictate a person's destiny. Deep down, he believed that every person, no matter how small or insignificant they seemed, had the power to change their story. He longed to become someone who could inspire others, someone who could bring hope where there was none. Yet, doubt lingered at the edges of his resolve. The villagers often mocked his ambition, calling him foolish for thinking he could ever escape the life he was born into. But Ethan held on to his belief like a flickering flame, small yet unyielding, determined to find a way to rise above the weight of his struggles. One evening, dark clouds rolled in with an ominous intensity, and a fierce storm descended upon the village without warning. The wind howled through the narrow streets, tearing at rooftops and uprooting fragile fences. Sheets of rain pounded the ground, flooding homes and washing away precious livestock. The storm raged through the night, leaving destruction in its wake and plunging the villagers into despair. By dawn, Pine Hollow was unrecognizable. Trees were splintered, fields were reduced to muddy wastelands, and the air was filled with the cries of those mourning their losses. As the villagers surveyed the damage, their frustration and grief turned toward Ethan. They accused him of failing to see the storm coming, claiming he had been too distracted by his solitary days in the fields to sound an alarm. "He spends all day watching the skies and the sheep," one villager sneered, "yet he couldn't warn us of this?" Their words cut deep, adding to Ethan's own sense of guilt. He had seen the darkening clouds and the restless winds, but he hadn't known the magnitude of the storm. Their accusations, fueled by fear and anger, made him feel more isolated than ever. Ethan remained silent, swallowing the bitterness of their blame, unsure how he could ever regain their trust or prove his worth to a community that had already written him off as nothing more than an outsider. The morning after the storm, the air was damp and heavy, and Ethan led his sheep to graze in a quiet corner of the valley, seeking solace away from the accusing stares of the villagers. As he guided his flock, he noticed an unfamiliar figure sitting beneath a large oak tree. A man with a weathered face, a tattered coat, and a glint of wisdom in his eyes. Introducing himself as Mr. Caldwell, the old man carried an air of mystery that immediately intrigued Ethan. His voice was calm yet commanding, and his presence seemed out of place in the forgotten village. Ethan, though cautious, couldn't help but approach him, drawn by a sense of curiosity he hadn't felt in years. As they talked, Mr. Caldwell began to share stories of his travels, painting vivid pictures of bustling cities where the streets were alive with opportunity and distant lands where the horizon seemed endless. He spoke of towering libraries filled with knowledge, marketplaces brimming with color and life, and people who had risen from nothing to achieve greatness. Ethan listened intently, his imagination ignited by the old man's words. For the first time, someone spoke to him about a world beyond the hills, a world where the possibilities were as vast as the night sky he often gazed upon. Mr. Caldwell's tales weren't just stories. They felt like an invitation, a challenge to break free from the life he'd always known and dare to dream of something more. As the sun began to dip behind the hills, casting the valley in golden light, Mr. Caldwell reached into his weathered satchel and pulled out an ancient, crinkled map. The paper was faded with age, its edges frayed, but the intricate markings and symbols hinted at something extraordinary. He handed it to Ethan with a steady gaze, his voice low but filled with conviction. "This map," he said, "leads to a treasure that could change everything for you and your village. It's not just wealth, it's something far more valuable, but the path to it is fraught with danger. It's not for the faint of heart." Ethan's hands trembled slightly as he took the map, his mind racing with questions. Why had Mr. Caldwell chosen him? And why did the treasure seem tied to his village's salvation? Ethan studied the map, its strange symbols and winding trails sparking both awe and apprehension. The path marked out seemed to weave through dense forests, treacherous rivers, and steep mountain passes. Mr. Caldwell warned him of the challenges he would face: wild animals, natural traps, and the ever-present risk of losing his way. "The treasure isn't just hidden," the old man added. "It's protected by trials that will test your courage, your wit, and your resolve. Many have tried, and none have returned." Ethan felt a surge of doubt, his chest tightening with the enormity of what lay before him. But beneath the fear, a flicker of hope ignited. The map was more than a piece of paper. It was a chance to prove himself, to rise above the scorn of the villagers, and to finally make his life and their lives better. When Ethan returned to the village clutching the map, he couldn't contain his excitement. He gathered the villagers to share what Mr. Caldwell had told him, his words filled with the promise of a brighter future. But as he finished explaining, laughter erupted from the crowd. The villagers, worn down by years of hardship, dismissed his tale as nothing more than a foolish fantasy. A treasure to save the village? From an old man with a dusty map? One scoffed. "You've lost your mind, Ethan," another sneered. Their mockery stung, and their harsh words echoed the doubts he had buried deep inside. They saw him as a naive shepherd chasing an impossible dream, someone unfit to take on such a monumental task. For days, Ethan wrestled with uncertainty. The map sat on his small wooden table, its lines and symbols both beckoning and intimidating. Part of him wanted to abandon the idea, to stay within the safety of the life he knew, however bleak it might be. But as he sat under the stars one night, his mother's words echoed in his mind. Even the smallest candle can light the darkest room. With renewed resolve, he made his decision. He packed his modest belongings, a sturdy pair of boots, some bread, and the map, and set out at dawn. The villagers watched him leave with shaking heads and doubtful whispers, But Ethan no longer cared. Fueled by a flicker of hope and a determination to prove everyone wrong, he stepped onto the path that would forever change his life. Ethan's journey began with a relentless series of trials that tested him in ways he had never imagined. The path marked on the map wound through jagged hills and dense thickets that tore at his clothes and left scratches on his skin. The rocky terrain was unforgiving, forcing him to navigate steep inclines and slippery slopes, each step demanding his full focus. Nights were cold and lonely, the eerie sounds of the wilderness a constant reminder of how far he was from the safety of his village. His modest provisions quickly ran low, and hunger gnawed at him, making each day feel heavier than the last. As exhaustion set in, so did doubt. Ethan began to question everything: his belief in Mr. Caldwell's story, his ability to succeed, and even the very purpose of his journey. He couldn't shake the memory of the villagers' laughter, their mocking voices replaying in his mind like a cruel refrain. Was he just a naive shepherd chasing a fantasy, destined to fail like everyone expected? Yet, amidst his self-doubt, a quiet determination persisted. Each time he considered turning back, he would unfold the map, tracing its lines with his fingers, reminding himself of the potential treasure that could change everything. Though his body ached and his spirit wavered, he kept moving forward, clinging to the fragile hope that this path, however treacherous, might lead to something extraordinary. On the third day of his arduous journey, as Ethan navigated a narrow forest trail, he stumbled upon a young woman sitting by a small campfire. Her clothes were rugged and practical, her dark hair tied back to keep it out of her sharp, observant eyes. She introduced herself as Abigail, a traveler who had also heard whispers of the treasure. Unlike Ethan, her demeanor was confident, and she carried herself with the air of someone who had faced danger before and lived to tell the tale. Abigail had been following a similar path, her own map leading her toward the same destination. Their meeting felt like a twist of fate, and after a cautious exchange of stories, they decided to join forces. Abigail proved to be a valuable companion. Where Ethan had struggled with self-doubt, Abigail brought a sense of clarity and decisiveness. She taught him clever tricks for navigating the wild, how to find edible plants, how to identify safe routes, and even how to start a fire with damp wood. In turn, Ethan's knowledge of the land and his ability to read the subtle signs of nature filled in gaps in her skills. Together, they became a formidable team, balancing each other's weaknesses with their strengths. Their conversations, often held under the stars or during short breaks in the shade, revealed shared dreams of a better life, though Abigail kept certain parts of her past shrouded in mystery. Despite their differences, an unspoken trust began to grow, binding them as they faced the uncertain road ahead. Unbeknownst to Ethan and Abigail, danger loomed closer than they realized. As they shared plans by the campfire one night, their voices carried softly through the still forest air, reaching ears that shouldn't have been listening. Hidden in the shadows, a group of bandits lingered, their weathered faces illuminated faintly by the glow of distant flames. The leader, a tall, scarred man with a cruel smile, motioned for his men to stay silent as he listened intently. The words, treasure, and map sparked greedy excitement among the group. With cunning minds and no intention of doing the work themselves, the bandits decided to tail the pair, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The next day, the bandits followed at a safe distance, careful not to reveal their presence. They moved through the forest with practiced stealth, their rough boots silent on the soft ground. Watching Ethan and Abigail struggle over rocky paths and ford shallow rivers, the leader chuckled to himself. "Let them face the hard part," he muttered to his men. "When they find what we're after, we'll take it without breaking a sweat." Meanwhile, Ethan and Abigail remained blissfully unaware of the shadowy figures tracking their every move. Focused on the challenges of their journey, they pressed forward, unaware that their determination and trust in each other were about to be tested in ways they couldn't yet imagine. As Ethan and Abigail delved deeper into the wilderness, the challenges they faced became increasingly perilous. Crossing raging rivers, navigating narrow mountain ledges, and braving sudden storms demanded absolute cooperation. Ethan found himself relying on Abigail's quick thinking and resourcefulness, while she leaned on his steady resolve and deep understanding of the land. Yet, as their partnership grew stronger, so too did the weight of unspoken truths between them. Moments of tension arose when decisions were split or when the stress of the journey began to wear on their patience. Though they worked as a team, there was a lingering sense that each carried secrets they weren't ready to share. One evening, as they sat by a dwindling fire, Abigail broke her silence. With her gaze fixed on the flickering flames, she confessed her past. She revealed that she had once been part of a notorious gang that roamed the countryside, stealing from travelers and stirring fear wherever they went. Her decision to leave had not been without risk. Abandoning the gang meant putting a target on her back. "I didn't want that life," she admitted, her voice heavy with regret. "I wanted to be more than just a thief. That's why I'm here, chasing this treasure. I'm trying to build something better, even if it means starting over." Ethan was stunned by the revelation, unsure how to respond. But as the night wore on, he realized that her honesty took courage. Though he felt conflicted, he recognized that they were both seeking redemption in their own way, and for now, they would have to continue trusting each other if they were to survive the road ahead. The map guided Ethan and Abigail into a remote valley shrouded in mist, its beauty masking the dangers that lay within. Towering cliffs surrounded them, and dense foliage choked the narrow paths. The further they ventured, the more treacherous the landscape became. Boulders were precariously balanced above narrow trails, and deep, concealed pits lurked beneath the carpet of leaves. Every step demanded vigilance. Abigail led the way with her sharp instincts, her eyes scanning for anything out of place, while Ethan used his intimate knowledge of natural patterns to spot signs of hidden dangers. Their teamwork became their greatest weapon, each relying on the other to navigate the valley's relentless challenges. The traps grew more sophisticated as they pressed forward, as though the valley itself was testing their resolve. At one point, a section of the trail gave way beneath Abigail's feet, revealing a sharp drop into a rocky ravine. Ethan's quick reaction saved her, pulling her back just in time. Later, it was Abigail who noticed a faint glint of sunlight reflecting off a nearly invisible tripwire strung between two trees, likely meant to trigger a deadly rockfall. Each danger they overcame deepened their bond, forcing them to trust one another implicitly. Though exhaustion pressed heavily upon them, neither dared suggest turning back. The valley seemed to pulse with a sense of purpose, as if guarding something extraordinary. With every obstacle conquered, they grew more determined to uncover the treasure that lay hidden within its forbidding depths. The bandits finally revealed themselves on a moonless night when the shadows of the forest seemed to close in on Ethan and Abigail. The pair had just finished setting up camp when the leader of the gang stepped into the firelight, flanked by his rough-looking companions. Their weapons glinted menacingly, and their smirks betrayed their confidence. "Hand over the map and any treasure you found," the leader growled, his voice like gravel. "Make it easy for yourselves." Ethan's heart pounded, his hand instinctively moving to the knife at his belt, though he knew they were outnumbered and outarmed. Abigail, however, kept her composure, her sharp eyes darting between the bandits and their surroundings, already formulating a plan. As the bandits closed in, Abigail whispered to Ethan, instructing him to distract them while she prepared a counterstrike. Drawing on his courage, Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "If you want the map, you'll have to come and get it," he said, holding it aloft like bait. The taunt worked. Two of the bandits lunged toward him, giving Abigail the opening she needed. Using the terrain to their advantage, she kicked over a pot of smoldering coals, sending a plume of smoke and ash into the air. The sudden chaos gave them a split second to act. Ethan dodged the attackers, using his shepherd's staff to knock one off balance, while Abigail grabbed a fallen branch and swung it with precision, forcing the others to retreat. In the confusion, they managed to escape into the dense underbrush, their breaths ragged and hearts racing. Though they had outsmarted the bandits for now, the encounter left them shaken. It was a stark reminder of how high the stakes had become and how relentless their enemies were. Yet, as they pressed onward, bruised but unbroken, Ethan and Abigail felt a renewed determination to protect the map and see their journey through to the end. The map guided Ethan and Abigail to the mouth of a vast, shadowy cave hidden behind a cascading waterfall. The roar of the water echoed around them, masking the eerie silence that seemed to seep from the cavern's depths. As they stepped inside, their torches illuminated ancient inscriptions carved into the walls, their shapes twisting and curling like whispers frozen in stone. The air was heavy with an otherworldly energy, and the markings seemed to shimmer faintly, as if alive. Abigail ran her fingers across the carvings, her brows furrowed in concentration. "These aren't random," she murmured. "They're part of a puzzle. But what do they mean?" Ethan stared at the inscriptions, their intricate patterns stirring a distant memory. Slowly, fragments of his mother's bedtime stories began to surface. Tales of ancient guardians, hidden treasures, and riddles meant to test the worthiness of those who sought them. "I've seen these before," Ethan said, his voice trembling. He began to trace the symbols with his finger, recounting the stories his mother had told him. One carving resembled the mythical guardian of the valley, a serpent entwined with the roots of a great tree, while another mirrored the constellations she had pointed out on countless nights. Piece by piece, Ethan pieced together the meaning of the inscriptions. Together with Abigail, they aligned the symbols in a specific order, matching them to the stories and stars. When the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place, the ground beneath them rumbled softly, and a hidden door within the cave creaked open. A dim golden light spilled out, revealing a passageway leading deeper into the earth. Ethan felt a surge of bittersweet emotion, his mother's voice echoing in his heart as if she were guiding him from beyond. With Abigail by his side, he stepped forward, ready to uncover the secrets hidden within. As Ethan and Abigail ventured deeper into the hidden passage, the golden light grew brighter, guiding them into a grand chamber carved entirely out of glistening stone. In the center of the room stood an ornate chest, its intricate carvings depicting scenes of prosperity and harmony. For a moment, they stood in awe, their breath catching at the sight of the treasure they had risked so much to find. Abigail cautiously approached, her hands trembling slightly as she lifted the lid. Inside, instead of gold or jewels, they found carefully preserved scrolls, their delicate surfaces covered in elegant, ancient script. Ethan's initial disappointment quickly gave way to curiosity as he unrolled one of the scrolls, his eyes scanning its contents. The scrolls contained knowledge far more valuable than any gold. Detailed illustrations and writings revealed advanced agricultural techniques, methods for cultivating barren soil, conserving water, and creating sustainable systems that could transform their struggling village. Another scroll outlined trade strategies, teaching ways to forge alliances and prosper through mutual exchange. Abigail's eyes widened as she realized the magnitude of their discovery. "This isn't just treasure," she whispered. "It's the key to survival, to growth, to a future." Ethan nodded, a mix of gratitude and determination swelling within him. These scrolls held the power to reshape not only their lives but the fate of everyone in Pine Hollow. They had found something far greater than riches. They had found hope, and now they carried the responsibility of bringing it home. When Ethan and Abigail returned to Pine Hollow, their arrival stirred a mix of curiosity and derision among the villagers. Word had spread of their journey, and the people gathered to see what they had brought back. Ethan carried the scrolls carefully, their fragile parchment protected by a cloth bundle. Yet, as he began to explain the treasure's true nature, skepticism quickly turned to open disdain. Scrolls? Knowledge? What good is that to us? One villager scoffed. We needed gold to rebuild our homes, not dusty papers. Another chimed in, you risked your life for this? Typical foolishness. Ethan, the crowd murmured in agreement, their faces etched with disappointment and doubt. Undeterred, Ethan refused to let their disbelief dissuade him. Gathering a few willing villagers, he unrolled the first scroll and began to demonstrate what it contained. Using simple tools and the methods described, he showed how to enrich the soil by composting and rotating crops, techniques that could double their harvests. He explained strategies for conserving water by building small irrigation systems and using the land's natural contours to their advantage. The first results were slow but undeniable. Healthier plants, more robust yields, and fewer wasted resources. As the doubters watched these changes take root, their skepticism began to waver. For the first time, Pine Hollow saw a glimmer of what the scrolls could offer. A chance to thrive, not just survive. Over time, the once skeptical villagers began to embrace the knowledge Ethan and Abigail shared. The barren fields that had barely supported their meager existence were transformed into fertile land teeming with vibrant crops. Techniques outlined in the scrolls, such as crop rotation, natural pest control, and soil conservation, yielded results beyond anyone's expectations. With each harvest, the village not only grew enough to feed itself but also produced a surplus that could be traded. The people, who had long viewed their surroundings as unforgiving and barren, began to see the potential in their land and themselves. The transformation didn't stop at agriculture. As their newfound prosperity grew, Pine Hollow attracted the attention of neighboring villages and traders. Abigail, with her sharp negotiating skills, helped the villagers establish fair trade agreements, exchanging their surplus for tools, fabrics, and livestock. The once isolated community became a small hub of activity, with caravans bringing goods and news from the outside world. The village square, which had been a place of silence and gloom, now buzzed with laughter and life. Ethan and Abigail worked tirelessly, not just teaching new skills but fostering a sense of unity and hope among the villagers. Pine Hollow was no longer a forgotten place. It was thriving, a testament to resilience, knowledge, and the courage to change. As the village flourished, so too did its perception of Ethan. The same people who had once mocked him for his dreams now looked upon him with admiration and gratitude. Children ran to greet him as he passed, eager to hear his stories of the journey that had brought hope to their lives. Farmers who had once scoffed at his efforts now sought his advice, treating his words as guidance for their fields. Even the elders, who had been the most skeptical, began to openly praise his vision and determination. Slowly, the walls of disdain that had surrounded him for so long crumbled, replaced by respect and a sense of community. One by one, those who had doubted him approached to offer heartfelt apologies. "I was wrong about you," one villager admitted, their voice tinged with shame. "You've done more for us than we ever deserved." Ethan, humbled by their words, bore no resentment. Instead, he offered his forgiveness freely, reminding them that his journey had not been about proving them wrong, but about building a future for all of them. The transformation of Pine Hollow wasn't his alone, he insisted. It was the result of everyone working together. His humility only deepened their admiration, solidifying his place as not just a hero, but as a leader and a source of inspiration for the entire village. As Pine Hollow continued to prosper, the villagers recognized that Ethan's vision and dedication had been instrumental in their transformation. During a meeting in the newly bustling village square, the council elders publicly extended an offer to Ethan to join their ranks, naming him as a leader who could guide them into a brighter future. The announcement was met with enthusiastic applause from the gathered crowd, their faces filled with hope and trust. Ethan, however, hesitated. The idea of leading the village felt overwhelming. He still saw himself as the same shepherd boy who had struggled to earn their respect. What if he wasn't capable of the responsibility that came with the role? But as he looked around at the faces of the people, farmers, traders, and families who had once struggled as he had, he realized that this was no longer just about him. The journey he had undertaken, the knowledge he had shared, and the bonds he had forged had all led to this moment. Taking a deep breath, Ethan accepted the position, vowing to serve the community with the same determination that had brought him this far. His leadership was not about commanding others, but about ensuring the prosperity they had built together endured. With Abigail's support and the trust of the villagers, Ethan stepped into his new role, ready to guide Pine Hollow into an era of lasting growth and unity. As the village settled into its newfound prosperity, Abigail began to feel the pull of the road once more. Though she had grown to love Pine Hollow and found fulfillment in helping the villagers, a restless energy stirred within her. There were still horizons she longed to explore and dreams she needed to chase. One evening, as the setting sun bathed the fields in golden light, she approached Ethan. With a mix of gratitude and resolve in her voice, she told him of her decision to leave. "This place has become a part of me," she said, "but there's a bigger world out there calling my name. I need to see what else is waiting." Ethan listened quietly, his heart heavy yet understanding. Abigail had been his partner in every sense, a friend, a guide, and an equal in their shared journey. Her departure felt like the end of an era, but he knew she had always been meant for something greater. They stood together under the twilight sky, sharing stories of the challenges they had overcome and the bond they had forged. Before parting, they exchanged a promise. No matter where life took them, they would meet again someday. As Abigail walked away, her silhouette fading into the horizon, Ethan felt both loss and pride. She had been a vital part of the village's transformation, and now she would carry that same strength and determination into the world beyond Pine Hollow. Years passed, and Pine Hollow transformed into a thriving hub of life and trade. The fields, once barren and neglected, now stretched as far as the eye could see, lush with crops that fed not only the village but surrounding communities as well. The market square, once a quiet and desolate place, was alive with the chatter of merchants and travelers who came from afar to exchange goods and stories. The village that had once been on the brink of despair now stood as a shining example of resilience and innovation. At the heart of it all was Ethan, the once overlooked shepherd boy who had dared to dream beyond his circumstances. Ethan's name became known beyond the hills, spoken of with reverence and admiration. Travelers who passed through Pine Hollow often marveled at its success and sought to learn from its methods. They would ask about the man who had started it all, and the villagers would recount tales of Ethan's courage, his journey to uncover the treasure, and his unwavering dedication to their community. To the children of Pine Hollow, he was more than just a leader. He was a symbol of hope, a living reminder that greatness could rise from the humblest beginnings. Though he never sought recognition, Ethan's legacy became deeply intertwined with the village's identity, ensuring that his story would inspire generations to come.